You guys, it's so unreal. It's unreal. I am killing yet another plant. This poor succulent. My boyfriend keeps getting me succulents and I keep killing them. I am never beating the Antichrist allegations. Daughter of Satan I am. I fear that I am beating the witch allegations though, because I feel like witches should be really good at keeping plants alive. But look, this one and that one. It's embarrassing. I'm trying so hard. I'm doing everything. I'm following all the things that people are saying online, but I'm killing them. I am Hi, welcome. Sorry for the intensity. It's been a really weird January for me. I think that everyone's kind of feeling that right now. Gotta love election years. But anyways, yeah. So I am the Antichrist. I think we know this by now. Yeah, straight out of Satan's womb. That's just who I am. If you're on board with that, then you can feel free to join our little coven. All you have to do is click subscribe if you want to do that. Easiest coven to join in the entire world. You can also click the like button and the notification bell. That way you never miss our next meeting. Today, of course, I am talking about everything that I watched in the month of January. I'm gonna be starting with TV shows. Then I get into all the non-horror movies that I watched. There were a couple of theatrical releases that I got to go see. Then we talk about horror rewatches, my new watches of old horror. I finally watched Demons, getting a little bit more into Italian horror. And then, of course, we talk about new releases. I am gonna have a little rant about Night Swim, but you're just gonna have to stick around. Starting with TV shows, guys, I am struggling to get through Buffy. I know that last time when I talked about it, I was like, oh, I'm starting to like it a little bit more. But then I feel like every time I say that, I then put on an episode that puts me to sleep. Like, I'm so sorry, but I'm literally, I think now I'm on like episode 7 of season 2. I started watching that show months ago. Like, I don't even remember when I started it. It's been tough. Like, I really was like, I'm gonna finish season 2 in January. That's gonna happen. I think that I watched 1 episode, maybe 2. I'm sorry, like, babes, I'm sorry, but I'm not really feeling it. I did hear recently that they're thinking about reviving it. I think because Sarah Michelle Gellar's show on Paramount Plus got canceled after 1 season. Cause, oh, mama, it was garbage. Garbage, okay? So I would love to see her come back to Buffy. That would really light a fire under my ass to actually finish the original show, but we're not close to that yet. So moving on, I've also been watching season 7 of Rick and Morty, although I stopped, I think around episode 8 or something, because they brought back Ice-T and we were gonna get like a whole episode of Ice-T. My boyfriend and I stopped in the middle of watching that, and we have not gone back to complete the season since because it was so bad. It reminds me of how I saw recently that SpongeBob was like scraping the very, very bottom of the barrel by going back to the Imagination Box episode and explaining the lore of the box. Like, how dare? It felt really similar to that. I think that show, we're done. I did watch one good show this month, I promise, but let me just get a few other things out of the way. My dad paid for the family to have AMC Plus for a month, or he's like doing a free subscription, I don't know. A free trial, you know what I'm talking about. I tried out the show called Mayfair Witches. It stars the girl with the crazy witch eyes from like Percy Jackson and Texas Chainsaw. Can't remember her name right now. It's something. I lasted like 20 minutes into it, and then there was one of the driest sex scenes I've ever seen in my entire life, and I was like, you know what? I can't pretend that I'm interested in this anymore. And then I also tried out, what was it called? It was another witch show. I have to look it up. Sanctuary: A Witch's Tale. That one, I think that I lasted like 20 minutes into as well. Just the quality of the shows on AMC Plus, I don't think they're up to my standard. I think they're really weird. They have a bit of an uncanny feeling to them, like humans didn't actually make them. It's hard for me to explain. Sanctuary, that show might just be really British. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know, but I don't know that AMC Plus is the streaming service for me. You do get Shudder with it though, but I already have the Shudder extension with Amazon, so like, I'm good, love. The final show that I watched in January would be The Curse, starring Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder. Whitney and Asher Siegel are a newlywed couple struggling to bring their vision for eco-conscious housing to the small community of Espanola, New Mexico. But their efforts are complicated by an alleged curse and an eccentrically flawed reality TV producer, Dougie, who sees opportunity in their story. This show was so good. Like, it's so weird. Emma Stone, the chameleon that she is, wow, what a performance. She was the perfect embodiment of a bad person that so badly wants to be perceived as a good person. She was perfect, like excellent. Nathan Fielder, loved to see him branching out. Some of it was still kind of on brand for his quirky, irreverent comedy, but it was new. It was definitely a type of character that I had not seen him tackle before. He has another show, I think, on Paramount Plus that now I really want to watch, and now obviously I need to go back and finish Nathan For You because I've only seen a couple episodes of that. It's so good. The Curse had what I would probably consider to be a pretty controversial last episode. It was very, very weird. So many interesting plot threads did not get wrapped up by the final episode, which is what I was really hoping for. They did something really strange. It was a very eccentric way to kind of go out with a bang with the final episode, but I felt kind of unsatisfied. I ended up having to go and like read a bunch of other people's interpretations of it just to kind of like get a sense of, I don't know, what they were maybe trying to do, which that's never great. Usually I can like kind of see, you know, what someone's trying to do. The only other time I've experienced like a total loss and just total confusion is when I watched David Lynch films. It just felt really disconnected. I would love to hear any of your theories about it down below, because the more perspectives I get, the more I'm like, yeah, no, it was a pretty solid final episode. Okay, wait a minute. Tell me why I'm sitting in bed and I'm journaling. I've got the fire on. And I completely forgot that I watched the new Ted series on Peacock. Just fell right out of my head. And I don't know why, because I really enjoyed it. I love Georgia, is it Wingham or Wiggum? I think it's Wingham. She was in the MTV Scream TV show, and I fell in love with her when she played the character Beth. So I, again, really enjoyed watching her in Ted. I thought the lead actor was also really charming, and I laughed a few times. I was really entertained. Like, I actually enjoyed it, surprisingly. But then I totally forgot about it when it came time to make this video, so do with that what you will. Mwah. Let's talk about non-horror, starting with Poor Things. Although this movie, like, I don't know, because it's kind of a modern day sort of Frankenstein story, and there definitely was like a little bit of body horror in it. I mean, there's some disturbing stuff that happens. So I don't know, it was a real genre blend. It was a trippy experience. Brought back to life by an unorthodox scientist, a young woman runs off with a lawyer on a whirlwind adventure across the continents. Free from the prejudices of her times, she grows steadfast in her purpose to stand for equality and liberation. That's actually a really weird explanation of this movie. That's what it says on Google. That's what I just read off. I would kind of disagree with that. The thing about Poor Things that they fail to mention there, which I don't think it's really a surprise, because the movie starts off with you meeting Emma Stone's character, and she's essentially a baby. Like, she's, you know, this creation, and she's this baby in a woman's body. That is more complex and layered, and you find more out about that once you know, watch the movie. But that's how it starts, and it's you're like, yeah, I mean, she's a creation. She was like handmade by this weird scientist. That makes sense. And so it's about essentially like a child in a woman's body having to come to terms with being a woman. It was a little bit Barbie coded, honestly, except the very, very explicit, very sexual version of Barbie. The themes just felt really similar, because it's like, you know, one's a doll and then one is the creation of man, kind of. Like, do you know what I mean? A lot of people took issue with Poor Things because, like, I think it was a book that was written by a man, and then the screenplay was written by a man, and then it was directed by a man, even though it's a feminist movie, you know. The main issue that people seem to take with it is that it's not all-encompassing. It seems to suggest that coming to womanhood is just about discovering your sexuality, and I understand that criticism, because yeah, like, thematically it's not much more well-rounded than that. I also saw one Letterboxd review talking about like how it doesn't handle sex work very well, because that's like a whole section of the movie, and it's, you know, seemed ignorant to the actual struggles women go through and why they end up in that kind of a situation. I understand those complaints. Like, I get where you're coming from. For me, like, that didn't detract from my viewing experience. I think that it's kind of a weird criticism when, yeah, I mean, it wasn't all encompassing, but can any movie actually be? Being a woman is so complex, and like, that was another major complaint about Barbie. That was one of my complaints about Barbie. I was like, this is very elementary, like, are we really pushing the conversation forward with this? But then once I understood like who the target audience was, that it was like preteens, and I heard that, you know, 12-year-old girls were crying when they saw Barbie because they had never heard those words, like they needed that. So to me, me, I'm just like, well, it depends on who the audience for Poor Things is, I think. It really worked for me. Like, it was empowering for me. I think that especially because, like, sex is the major factor of shame that is pushed on women from such a young age. I remember being in 5th grade and, you know, my nipples starting to like get sore. So then like I would wear those little trainer bras. And I remember even like other girls making fun of me one day when I was wearing a yellow shirt and they could like see the bra through the shirt. Like, it starts so young. Immediately as your body starts changing, like you start experiencing that. It is a huge theme of a woman's life. That's why I love the movie Ginger Snaps so much. I think that Poor Things was kind of like the next like level up from that almost. So much about a woman's life like feels out of her control just because of like, you know, the sexual violence that we face honestly on a day-to-day basis. For me personally, I cannot go a day without someone in the comments sexualizing me. Even if it's something that seems kind of benign and they're just like, oh, you're so gorgeous, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. I don't like hearing it. Leave me alone. Stop. I get reduced down to my looks constantly. So for me, I felt the movie was very powerful. I have also seen, there's a writer that I really, really enjoy. Her name is Zoe Rose Bryant? Is that her name? Oh yeah, Zoe Rose Bryant. I got that right. Nice. She felt very empowered by the movie because she felt that it was like an allegory for transness. Like that's why she really resonated with it. I saw another review from somebody who was autistic that felt like it was such a great representation of autism and like they felt really seen. So it's a movie that's doing really good things for a lot of people. I feel like the criticisms that it's a regressive feminist movie, I don't think that those are really founded. If you want to be offended by Poor Things, that is your right though. So that's my piece on it. Up next, I rewatched Babylon. Oh my goddamn love this movie. It's so funny because my boyfriend and I were putting off watching the last Lord of the Rings movie because it was over 3 hours long. But then one day we were just like looking on streaming stuff, looking at what to watch, and I saw Babylon and I was like, we're watching that. It's over 3 hours long, by the way, if you didn't know that. And it just left me so jazzed. I couldn't even sleep after we watched it because I just was so excited about like making movies and just film, and I just in love with life, and you know what I mean. Goddamn love Babylon. Up next would be Saltburn. Boo! No, I'm just kidding. I thought it was fun. It's fun. I gave a more in-depth review over on the Patreon. I think it was like an 11-minute long review, so you can go check that out. It's fine. It's fun, but Emerald Fennel is my nemesis. So there's that. Up next, same thing with The Return of the King. We finally finished the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There are a lot of people that try to tell me it's the best trilogy ever made and yada yada, and that's fine. I politely disagree. If you'd like to see me impolitely disagree and call out how annoying and dumb their fandom is, then you can also, again, subscribe to me over on Patreon. If you're not annoying about Lord of the Rings, then it's not about you. But a hit dog is always gonna holler, so I'm sure that I'm still gonna see some annoying people in my comment section. Anyways, up next would be Mean Girls, the musical. Yay. I had the Dolby Cinema to myself. It was a little bit spooky. I was a little bit scared, but it was amazing. I got over that, and you know, because the movie started and the movie was really dumb. So the movie was really bad. It was so bad. My main takeaway, besides the fact that most of the songs were bad, why did they hire so many people that cannot sing? Even if they could sing, the songs were still bad. The musical numbers were so flat and so boring. The most fun and colorful one they had with like great costumes and all of that, it took place in a school hallway. So I'm like, why did you limit yourself and your choreography to this to a school hallway with all this fun color and all this whatever. But the thing that baffled me the absolute most was the fact that they recycled like 80% of the original dialogue. You couldn't even write new jokes. Oh no, I'm sorry. They did write new jokes, but to make them like less offensive, I don't know what is happening. Like what if screenwriters are trying to cater to my generation or like Gen Z, like younger Gen Z? I don't know what the hell is going on. But so much about writing is becoming less challenging for the viewer, and I'm like, why? In the original Regina Regina calls herself a fugly slut, and then in the new one, she's called a fugly cow. It was even, like, little things like that. I'm like, slut? Since when is slut a slur? And then the jokes that they didn't rewrite, it felt like the actors were almost embarrassed to be saying them, because they knew that it had been done before, and they knew that they weren't going to be able to fill those shoes, so, like, they didn't even try. The whole thing was very timid. Renee Rapp, she was the only person that could really sing. Yeah, yes. She was great, but they gave her, like, nothing to do. I liked how they humanized her a little bit more effectively, I think, than in the original, but it was too easy. Like, she didn't have enough screen time. It made no sense. Some of the musical numbers also just made no sense. Why does Gretchen start singing when she's in the closet? She starts singing about her grandma or something. I don't know. We never circle back on that. Who, what, when, where, and why? Why? It was so bad. It was so bad. And then now, like, Tina Fey, she's coming out and she's like, millennials think that they own Mean Girls and they think that they know what it is and blah, blah, blah. You're getting clowned on because your January fodder ass musical was bad, Tina Fey. And I'm sorry. I love you. I'm sorry. I love you, Tina Fey. Up next, I rewatched Inside Out and I sobbed and I cried like 4 different times. That movie gets me every time. My boyfriend had never seen it and the sequel is coming out this year and I'm super excited for it. Although it's not being directed by Pete Docter, which worries me a little bit, but nonetheless, I'm still very, very excited about it. I'm really excited that Maya Hawke is added to the cast. I am really worried though. I'm pretty sure that it was Bill Hader that was not returning, as well as Mindy Kaling, and I'm like, they were good, especially Bill Hader. Bill Hader was like my favorite character as Fear. But anyways, yeah, excited for the sequel nonetheless. And finally, the last non-horror movie of the month would be The Beekeeper, starring Jason Statham, cool guy, action movie hero. This is about cybersecurity. This poor woman, she gets scammed out of all of her money, her entire life savings. She ends up taking her own life, and then Jason Statham, her groundskeeper, essentially, he then goes on a revenge spree. It is ridiculous. I had a fun time, but it's just like a solid 3-star movie. Like, it's entertaining, and I probably wouldn't watch it again. Although some parts are fun. Like, Josh Hutcherson, if Josh Hutcherson was not in this movie, it's not worth watching at all. He was fantastic. He was so good, and just the polar opposite character to Peeta Mellark. I love that. I love to see his range. I love to see him in 2 big blockbusters in the last year. The action, I don't know, it was fine. I think it could have been better. I think that it could have been more self-aware and more fun. At some points, it was dragging and it was starting to feel a little bit serious, and I just was like, that's not what you're going for. Why are we doing this? And I was just thinking that I really didn't like the movie about halfway through, but then the third act really saves it. It really saves it. So just stick through it. Definitely a January time release though. Now let's get into all the horror. So let's talk about horror rewatches. I rewatched Ginger Snaps. Not only did I do a watch along with You Fine People, but I also released a deep dive of the movie. I consider it now probably one of my all-time favorite horror movies. It holds a very special place in my heart at this moment in time. So check that stuff out. Up next would be The Blob from 1988. My score on this one actually went down from the first time. I don't know why. I think I just realized how little substance is in it. The first time around, you're just in awe at the practical effects. I mean, that was still amazing. It was still like a 3-star film for me because I realized upon a rewatch that was really the only reason to rewatch it was the effects. Other than that, it does star Shawnee Smith, which is amazing because I totally forgot that was her in the movie. I was indeed watching it for inspiration for my upcoming short film. You can donate to that linked down below, yes. But yeah, I thought I would like it a little bit more on a rewatch than I did. Sometimes I yo-yo back and forth, like maybe on my next rewatch, I'll be like, yeah, wait, what? This is better than I remembered. Up next would be The Ruins. My opinion on this one did not change. It's still a 3.5-star film. I think this movie is honestly a little bit underrated. Like, it came out during a cheesy era. It doesn't look great because I just think that, like, once everything transferred to digital in the early 2000s, we got so many ugly movies. I don't know if it's just because people were still like figuring things out. So it's not really a good looking movie. I would love to know if there is some kind of like 4K remaster of it. I don't think there is. I don't even know if that's possible when it's shot digitally. Like, how much can they really clean it up? Whereas film, you can clean it up and it looks amazing, right? But anyways, that's not the point. That movie is so disturbing. It's so gross. It's some of the best body horror of the early 2000s. I just feel like it kind of got lost lost and disregarded because that era is seen as kind of campy and kind of ridiculous. But the practical effects of that time, I mean, in The Ruins, they're really, really good. I'd also read The Ruins for the first time last year and just knew that I was due for a rewatch. I think that it's a pretty damn good adaptation. Up next, I rewatched Get Out because my boyfriend had never seen it, and also because I am releasing a deep dive this month for Black History Month, so you can be looking forward to that. I'll save my thoughts for now. We also did a watch along of 30 Days of Night, so you can check that out, I think, over on my Patreon, because I'm pretty sure it got copyright issues, so it's probably not up on the YouTube channel anymore. That one was a little bit better than I remembered. Like, it's a little bit too long. I think it's a little bit too drawn out, and the ending, so bad. So bad. But the movie as a whole, I mean, it's produced by Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert, you know, Evil Dead Squad, Evil Dead Gang. I think that one is a little bit overlooked as well as an early 2000s horror movie. And finally, yet another watch along. On the last day of January, we watched The People Under the Stairs together, and that one did indeed jump up to my number 3 on my Wes Craven ranking. It fell only underneath Scream and Scream 4. It jumped up above A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, oh, can we even believe? I think that that'll probably get rectified as soon as I rewatch Nightmare on Elm Street again, I'm sure. But I just love People Under the Stairs so goddamn much. But now let's talk about some horror movies that I watched for the first time that are a little bit older. Night of the Demons is first up. Maybe you haven't heard of this one. This one came out in the 80s. This movie follows some wild teenagers who hold a Halloween seance in an old funeral parlor to scare their friends. This movie should have been right up my alley. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mood for it, but I love 80s horror. I get such a kick out of it. I love the music of that time period. The cast of this was pretty fun. Like, it had all the good, you know, typical 80s tropes and things and everything that I should enjoy, really. But I felt like it was a little bit repetitive and a little bit tedious. I just ended up getting a little bit bored. So I also just was kind of annoyed by some of the characters and some of like the sexualization that was going on, because usually it's a little bit more campy, a little bit more over the top, like in the Friday the 13th films. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Whereas in this movie, I just was like, ugh, like it just was like a little bit cringy, and I kind of just wanted to fast forward through those parts. So it's one that someday I will definitely give a redemption rewatch. I do have it on Blu-ray. I am gonna hold on to it because I'm gonna want to watch it again at some point. Not the next one though. Oh my god. New Year, New You, directed by Sofia Takal, who did Black Christmas from 2019. Remember that one? Friends gather for a reunion on New Year's Eve to reconnect and reminisce as they rehash old memories and revisit an old party game of Never Have I Ever. Gripes and secrets they've been harboring manifest in nefarious ways. The best way I can put this is just what I said in my Letterboxd review. I do not think that Sofia Takal is a girl's girl. She tries to make feminist movies and just misses the mark so badly. She's almost as bad as Emerald Fennell. Maybe she's as bad. Maybe she's worse. I don't know. It stars Suki Waterhouse, so I was like, okay, cool. Like, I know that she's pregnant with Robert Pattinson's baby. I didn't know anything else about her. And her acting was really good. Like, she was probably the only kind of shining moment of this movie. And I will say that it was entertaining. I wasn't really ever bored because it's a pretty short film. You can find it on Hulu. Like, it's a really easy watch. And I was searching for more New Year's horror because, you know, obviously it's January and I hadn't heard of that one. But it's probably not worth the watch. I don't regret it as a one-time watch because I found the drama, like, between the girl characters interesting, but it didn't really have anything else going for it beyond that. And also a lot of the characters' motivations just made no sense to me and were kind of frustrating. So that's that on that. Up next we have Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. This was a horror pack bundle edition. This is exactly what it sounds like. Like, I don't think I really need to read off a synopsis because it's just ridiculous. They act like somebody recorded it on VHS back in the day, so it's one of those mock 80s slashers kind of. I was loving it for like the first 15 minutes. I thought that it was fantastic. I thought it was so funny and so unique. I really liked the kind of off-brand type comedy. I like the comedy style of it, but then I realized how annoying that comedy style is when it's stretched out to like an hour and 40 minutes. It ran super, super thin. I started to find the whole shtick really, really repetitive. I enjoyed the first 15 minutes because like it was a comedy style that I hadn't really seen before. It was super self-aware and just super over the top and ridiculous. But I think it probably would have worked better as like an SNL sketch, not as a feature-length film. I also don't know why John Francis Daly has a cameo in the movie. If anybody could enlighten me on that, that'd be great. But there's a scene where he's like sun tanning with his boyfriend on a sidewalk. Like, I don't know what was going on. Am I all for a weird little gay boy cameo from John Francis Daly? Of course. But I do feel like I need it explained to me. So yeah, I wasn't super crazy about it. That's another one though that it was like a 2.5-star film. I want to give it a redemption rewatch because I think that it'll probably deserve it. I don't know, the comedy just grew old. Up next, I finally watched Upgrade, directed by Lee Whannell. This was not his debut. This was right after Insidious Chapter 3, but before Invisible Man. This one, I don't want to read the synopsis because it would spoil too much. Like, if you enjoy being surprised, then go into this more blind. I think, okay, I'll spoil this part of it because it's like a huge part of the premise. It's like the whole movie. The main character ends up paralyzed, and then he ends up with this, they're sort of testing out this program that they've like put into his brain to, you know, give him his bodily functions back again and all that. It's very dark. People call it, I guess, like steampunk or something. Is that correct? That might not be the right term, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about because I've showed some clips, so like you can see the vibe. It's very like future dystopian kind of, you know, AI type, virtual reality type stuff going on. Zero privacy, everyone's face being read in public all the time by police drones, that kind of a vibe. Terrible, absolutely awful, by the way. Would not want to live in that world, but, you know, this movie came out 6 years ago now, and we're getting kind of close to living in that world. How fun. It hit really deep because of that, I think because of how ahead of its time this movie was. Or I guess not, because, you know, obviously we have like 2001: A Space Odyssey, we have Terminator, like it's not new, but between Upgrade and the Terminator, it felt obviously a lot more close to the current reality. It was a 3.5-star movie for me. I was teetering between like 3.5 and 4 stars, but I did find the opening to be really, really predictable. And again, like I hadn't read the synopsis because I like to go into movies really blind. All I knew was what I just told you about it. They play on some kind of just ridiculous, well-trodden tropes that I just was a little bit tired to see, including like a lot of disabled people are not a fan of the movie because it relies on the trope of, you know, someone who is disabled seeing themselves as broken and getting to a place of wanting to unalive themselves and only representing the character as full and having a positive character arc once their body is fixed. It's a tired trope. I agree. I had not considered that. I do recommend reading some of those reviews, but everything else about it I thought was really, really good. I mean, Lee Whannell's direction is just super fun. Also, the lead performance, wow. I feel like we should talk about him more often. And it was just really, really bleak. The things that it made me consider, I was thinking about that movie for several days after we watched it. So I definitely do recommend, at least as a one-time watch. Up next we have I Saw What You Did, which is a little William Castle flick starring Joan Crawford. Kit and her best friend Libby are two teenage girls bored while babysitting. To pass the time, they make prank phone calls telling the person on the other end of the line, I saw what you did and I know who you are. Obviously it's all fun and games until it isn't, when they say this to somebody who has just committed a crime. So they get all wrapped up into it, and it's good, kind of typical William Castle fun, but not as fun as some of his other movies. Like it was a good enough time to watch. It was like a 3-star movie. Not mad that I watched it, but probably wouldn't watch it again, especially because it was sold to me like it stars Joan Crawford, but I think that she really only has maybe like 9 minutes of screen time. That's not enough for me. Like that is not enough for me. If you want to watch a William Castle movie starring Joan Crawford, then check out Straight Jacket. Trust me. That movie is so much more fun. Also, obviously check out House on Haunted Hill. Love that movie. Then I watched Frankenstein from 1910. I did not think that a movie from 1910 would be so fucking metal. It was great. I had a great time. It was like 12 minutes long, and the creation of the monster, ooh, I'm gonna have so many more thoughts about that in my Frankenstein deep dive. I'm gonna save them for now, but I highly recommend. I also finally watched the Ginger Snaps sequel and the prequel for the very first time. Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed, and then what was the third one? Ginger Snaps Back. Both of them are pretty bad, right? But I was really surprised that I ended up enjoying the third movie more than the second one. To me, the magic is in the girls' relationships, and so I think that's why I preferred the third one. Also just because it was such a unique setting. It was basically the same as the first movie, but just set way back when. It had a lot to say. There is some problematic representation concerning the native people, but at least they employed actual native actors, because they don't always do that. See Twilight. But, you know, it had a lot to say. Made me consider a lot about, you know, just the general persecution of women 200 years ago. And I liked it. I said on Letterboxd, I said it is Pet Sematary 2 levels of bonkers, because that was the best way that I could describe it. I enjoyed Pet Sematary 2 more than the original movie just because it's so, it's otherworldly. Like, what is even going on? That was kind of how I felt about Ginger Snaps Back. Up next, oh, speaking of House on Haunted Hill, I did finally watch the remake from the 90s, and it was so bad, y'all. It was so bad. What a stinker. So many people had told me that it was good, and that I think, you know why? Because I am a fan of 13 Ghosts from 2001. I think that's largely because of Matthew Lillard, but also because I really, really like the practical effects. And it's so bad. It feels like a Disney Channel original movie, but rated R, and it makes no sense. That's why I like that one. It has certain charm. There's certain je ne sais quoi. Okay, I can't explain it. The House on Haunted Hill remake, I think it's just bad. I know that there are a lot of you out there that find it fun, that feel like it's so bad that it's good. I'm just not there with you. Like the original movie from the 50s, yeah, I mean, the effects are bad. It was 1958, but it's sort of similar to 13 Ghosts, where like that's part of its charm. And also because the characters are really well defined. It stars Vincent Price. I mean, come on. I was actually really surprised that in the remake, the guy they cast was really, really similar to Vincent Price. And I think, what was it called? His company was like Price Industries or something. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's a nice homage. They know what they're doing. He kind of looks like him. He was never gonna replace him, baby. And that's not what I was expecting, but like, he didn't have the same eccentricities. He kind of was just an asshole. It just, I don't know. You would think that because it was so bad and the effects were so bad and whatever, it would kind of have a similar type of charm, but I just found it bad. I am gonna hold on to my Blu-ray though. I'll give it a redemption rewatch someday, probably like 5 years from now, because it does star my girl Clear. That's not her real name, but she's Clear in Final Destination, so that's how I know her. So we'll see someday, but it was bad. I'm sorry. So was Carnosaur, which is up next. We did do a watch along of Carnosaur, so you can go watch that and get my commentary and all that good stuff. I do see the appeal. I really, really do. It's just basically like a grosser version of Jurassic Park with worse effects and boring characters. So I do get the appeal. I really do, but I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. For me, those super schlocky, like, do you call them, is that considered a B movie? Carnosaur probably is. I was almost gonna call it a C movie just because I'm like the quality. Anyway, those types of movies I do not think are for me. Although, well, what am I, okay, so yeah, you guys will have to let me know down below, because I consider something like Slumber Party Massacre, that's a B movie, right? Just your typical 80s slasher movie, has some good gore, fun villain, whatever. But then Carnosaur, to me, is a step below that, because you're relying on disgust, like shock value on top of that, on top of being really low budget. I don't know. You let me know. The final new watch of an old horror movie, as I mentioned, I finally saw Demons for the first time by Lamberto Bava. Patrons of a sneak preview see others zombified to heavy metal music in a Berlin theater. It was produced by Dario Argento, directed by Lamberto Bava, who I need to get into their filmographies much more. I know this. Oh, what a fun time. Talk about killing zombies with a samurai sword while riding a motorcycle. What? I had so much fun. Like, I don't really have that many thoughts on this movie just because it was just a good time. I almost gave it 4 stars just for the ending alone because, oh, yeah, I was shocked. But there are parts of the movies that I felt dragged a little bit. You watch the movie for the demons, the zombie people, all the gore, which is just fantastic. I didn't really care about any of the characters. I didn't really care care about the setup. I just wanted to get to that point. So for me, it was a 3.5-star movie. I had so much fun. I am sure that it'll probably be a movie I rewatch like every 2 years or something. And it inspired me yet again. I said this like back in August or something. I was like, I need to get into more Italian horror. Every time I watch an Italian horror movie, I'm like, I'm so fun. Let's do this again sometime. And then I don't for like months. And so I need to fix that. Give me your recommendations down below. I promise I'm gonna try to be better about that this year. Try to watch at least one Italian horror movie every month. Maybe every month. Try to hold me to that. But now it's time to talk about new releases. And unfortunately, I only have one new horror release to talk with you today. I can't talk. The movie was so bad. I can't talk. Like, what even just happened to my mouth? Night Swim. We gotta talk about Night Swim, you guys. Night Swim is about a family that moves into a house in the suburbs like every other horror movie in the goddamn universe. But this time, the horror element is their swimming pool. So this had a lot of flopped potential. This movie was so bad. Imagine getting possessed by a swimming pool. I'd be so embarrassed. Carrie Russell, like, we nominated her for an Oscar last year for The Banshees of Inisherin, and now she's having to take paycheck jobs. What is going on? We cannot be doing Carrie Condon like this. And also, what's his face? Something Russell. Wyatt Russell, is that his name? Kurt Russell's son. I like him. I thought that he was so good in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. He was excellent in that. I think that he's really got some acting chops. He did not get to show them off in this movie. Ooh, I don't know what was going on. And then the possessed, it was I didn't like any of it. I think Carrie Condon was doing her best, and they did not deserve her in this movie. This was just one of the most damning January releases I've ever seen. It came out on like, what, January 4th, right? Just, yeah, right in the beginning of the year. One of the most forgettable movies of this year, I'm sure. And I haven't even seen a single other new horror release. So that is where we're at. It's looking really, really grim. The only new release that I am sure I'm seeing in theaters this month for horror is Imaginary. That one also looks very, very bad in my opinion, but I'll probably end up giving that one a solo review because I did not do that for Night Swim, and I just feel like I'm not doing my job. But I'm not a fan of giving movies reviews that I do not like. They end up turning into rants, and I just don't enjoy putting all that negative energy out there. I could have gone on a whole rant about Night Swim. I could have given it a Patreon review, but I didn't do that because I just would like to move on. I would just like to move on, and I think that Wyatt Russell and Carrie Condon would like to do that as well. Onward and Upward, though, you know, we can really only go up from here because that was like a 1.5-star movie, and I typically don't give movies that low of ratings anymore. If I think they're that bad, I turn them off, but you know, it was a theatrical release. It was the first horror release of the year. I had to sit there and I had to stick it out. Unfortunately, that's gonna do it. If you saw any new horror releases on streaming, maybe that I just was not made aware of somehow, then please also put those in the comments. I know I've asked for a lot of recommendations today, but I need all of them, especially if there was any new horror from January that I missed, but I kind of doubt it. We don't start getting the really good horror releases until summertime usually. But like I said, Onward and Upward, my dear friends. If you want even more content from me, I do post 3 times a week, believe it or not. I have my second channel where I talk about physical media. This week I am doing a little anti-haul, and then the week after that I'm posting my vlog of going to the most haunted hotel in California. But I also have a Patreon, as I've mentioned several times, and you get new videos there every single Wednesday. Also, check out the GoFundMe for my next short horror film that is releasing this year. And you can also follow me on social media. Go crazy, have fun, Twitter, Instagram, you know the drill. But more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye!